I'm from Macau. I mean, it's a tiny little city in China. We painted in three locations. So I painted in China, the mainland, in a few cities, and then we painted in Hong Kong, also a different city, different culture, and then we paint in Macau, also a different city and different culture. And there's actually a huge difference between three regions. Really, I didn't expect that, but that was how it is. The last 3 years of the pandemic, it kind of made me, I don't know why. I used to do more painting and drawing on actual, like, for example, canvases or or murals, I guess, yeah, as well, but not so much on digital medium. But I think for some reason, like the pandemic, have digitalized a lot of things. I think it's not just in the ways of art as well, but also like in the day-to-day life and work or everything as well. And I think it kind of made me like these exhibition, like the one also in 2020, the one with the photos as well. I think it kind of opened up a new like medium for me as well. So I think it's kind of cool that way too. I don't often draw human subjects, but this time I'm trying to do a bit more of a mix with animal with or well actually this is mostly a human portrait with like some animal elements in it. Obviously I cannot draw hyper realistic humans, so I use my own style to do the flow and try to maintain the same um motion. I think it's a little bit so in Chinese 醉生梦死. So it's translated directly would be kind of like a drunken haze. That's just the name of title of the piece as well. It can be a good thing, but it can also be a negative thing. So usually when you say 醉生梦死, which is drunken haze, it means like someone who really enjoys the, I guess, life as well, but at the same time, it can be like you can enjoy the life so much that you can forget about the reality of things as well. So you're kind of like constantly, almost like you are. I mean, if you translated the words literally, it means while you're alive, you're you're in a drunken stage, and then when you're dying, you die in your dreams. So it's like you never really see what's in front of you really for what it really is, but you just rather try to just surround yourself with some imaginary, some imagined reality, so to speak, right? So I think I did that because I feel like that was like a little bit of my own personal experience for the last 3 years throughout the COVID that I met a lot of people that tend to have that tendency. I mean, that's why when I designed, for example, her face is her eyes are closed, she doesn't want to see what's in front of her. She rather just drink what's, like, and just be like, no, don't tell me anything. I don't want to know. I just want to, like, just be happy like this. And so I applaud people that like to live their life like that. But then also I also tend to find that a little bit like sad, the inability to face reality. Sorry, it doesn't sound very optimistic. I was a little bit like that. So it wasn't really just people around me, but also myself included. So usually my subjects tend to be a little bit more happy and stuff, but I really want to get those words out. So based on the words, I did the thing. So anyway, yeah, so that's the reason. So I think COVID really affected all of us, I think, in the nutshell. Doing this show in Mexico, I think for me, I also want to represent my own culture. I'm not saying my own culture is 醉生梦死. Okay, I'm not saying that. But what I'm trying to say is that one thing I love about the Chinese literature is the I don't know how to say it in English. The 世之成语, right? There's a certain practice of Chinese literature. I mean, yeah, Chinese literature where it's hard to say this in English, but they're called short phrases. But these short phrases, yeah, they sum up one very deep, long message just using 4 characters. So, for example, so you say 醉生梦死, that's you can tell a lot of story just using 4 characters. And then if you say it to somebody, they already understood. Okay, I know what you're trying to say. And I think I mean, obviously, there's a lot of like a lot of places around the world. There's been a lot of histories of like Chinese immigrants been in different places for hundreds of years, of course. And then I know the culture itself is actually, quite widely known. But for me, I think this is something that I at least to my own exposure to like overseas Chinese community, it's not really that widely promoted, like these type of expression. It's almost like a Chinese haiku, yes, but instead of like an actual two line poem, we constrict it to only 4 words. And so yes, I think I selfishly also want to reflect that part, like what it's very very old, and it's very, very traditional. And I see that. That's why, and also because I think at least for myself, I assumed that for a Mexican audience, if I tell that this is actually from a very old saying, that maybe in a Mexican audience will relate it a lot as well, because there's a lot of see, this is what me and Felipe discussed as well, is that we noticed there are a lot of parallel, or at least like a similarity in the Mexican. I wouldn't say culture 100%. Obviously, there's a difference, right? But like but the way we look at things, and the way like the Chinese people tend to be really, really proud of our own cultural roots. And then I know that knowing a lot of like Mexican artists as well, that a lot of them are also really, really proud of their own Mexican culture, and they tend to try to reflect it, not more of a modern day thing, but like they try to dive into like more of their like long time ago sort of like a story, and they want to bring it back out to tell. At least I see now that there's a growing trend as well, and this is myself as well. This is something I also want to do as an artist, is to like bring things that the things besides, like I'm not trying to make it sound really bad, but like I don't want to just go into stereotypical Chinese motif, like the dragon. You know what I mean? Like just stuff, that little nuances that people maybe tend to not know as much. This is something I want to like reflect as well. So yeah, anyway, sorry, I'm like ranting now. It's trying to tell a story of something that influences you the most. And there is a lot of I agree that there's a lot of like globalization, which is absolutely required, right, with this, with everyone. And there's a lot of, so that sometimes you tend to be like, there's certain history and stories that you grew up with, you're familiar with, that becomes lost in the huge, like in the huge picture. And just speaking for myself, for example, even within the Chinese culture, there are a lot of cultures that are disappearing too, and this is something that for example, I grew up and I was born in a Cantonese culture, so that's predominantly Guangdong southern part. There's a different language that we speak to Mandarin. So what Julia and I were talking, we were speaking in Mandarin, right? That's the predominantly spoken language. But then there's also another language that used to be more frequent, especially for people that lives overseas, or like in Chinatown traditionally. When I was a young kid in Australia, in Chinatown, the Chinese that people speak there are Cantonese, right? But now it's different. It's now it's Mandarin more prevalent. So it's also a huge culture, the Cantonese culture, that's slowly that for me, I think especially people globally are not so aware, because they tend to lump everything into under just one category of a Chinese culture. But actually because China is so huge, there's so many different cultures. So I try to show the stuff that's not commonly, maybe try to tell a story of like the culture that's not commonly maybe not well known or something like that. Yeah, I think it's important, definitely important. I'm from Macau, so it's a tiny little city peninsula of the southern edge of like so here's China. We're at a really little tip, like a little city. Yeah. And then when I was born, like when I was a kid, I think at the time Macau was still kind of like under the jurisdiction of Portugal. And then so yes, so but then in 99 we got returned back to China, and then so there's like a huge like a fusion between like the Portuguese culture and the Chinese culture, because it's been so it's kind of like I kind of grew up in like since I was a kid. Well, I guess since I was born in an environment where it's like an East and West, um, mixture. Yes, yes, absolutely. And then so but then when I was like through high school, I was in Melbourne in Australia. So I was studying there in high school, and I was studying there in uni, and then I when I started working the earlier part of my career, I was also in Melbourne as well. So that was like a huge that was like a huge I guess influence, from also a different country as well. And then I went to Hong Kong, and then now I'm back in Macau. So that's kind of like my global trot. Yeah. But I started painting, I guess, like while I was in Hong Kong, because I was drawing a lot, and I didn't really I mean, if you knew me before I started, like, I mean, I think I was painting murals, so I was drawing for a long time, but when I was starting to paint, I was in Hong Kong, and the reason why was because uh, Felipe, he was the one kind of like pulling me to start, and then I didn't really want to at first, because I mean, in Australia I did a bit of like stenciling and stuff as well, but I was really shy about my work. I was like, and also I always felt uh, I think I was quite introverted in that sense. I think in a lot of sense, but yeah, especially in that sense. And then so like at the time, Felipe was the one who kind of pulled me into, hey, let's try painting. Let's go, let's go, let's go. And I was like, oh, I don't really want to. I felt like really shy, and I really feel intimidated, and I'm not really good with communicating with people. But then I see it as, okay, you know what? I'm going to try and challenge myself to do it. I honestly didn't enjoy it too much in the beginning. That's the honest truth. Yeah, because I thought it was, I mean, the medium was hard. I was just starting out using like spray can and stuff, and I thought like, oh, this is so difficult. But then because I was also quite stubborn as well, so I was kind of like, look, if these guys can do it, I think I can do it too. So I forced myself to keep going, and then eventually I think I just kind of fell in love with it. It kind of taught me, well, obviously I learned a new medium through this, but then also I've also learned to be more open up with other people, and I think I can express myself a lot better using art as a platform, as a starting topic. Because I don't like to meet people like at a party. I don't like to meet people I feel like there's nothing hard for me to connect to people and hard to talk to people. So I always get a little bit awkward in these kind of social environment. But then I realize, like, when I paint, I can meet a lot of people who have similar interests, or at least the same passion, or like similar disciplines, and it's very exciting for me. And then so I think that's also the main reason why I fell in love with painting too, is because I met a lot through painting. I met a lot of like great people, and they all became our friends for a really long time. And yeah, so I think that's the general husk of the story. In Hong Kong, I think it's because it's more of a, I think it will be quite similar to like places like Shanghai or Beijing, where it's more like an international cities. And so they were like a huge, already like a pretty, I wouldn't say like giant, like compared to the Western like street art or graffiti scenes, because they've been developing for a really, really long time, right? But it's still like quite a robust scene, I would say. And so people are more susceptible to what you're doing, and there's pros and cons, obviously. So the pros are like, there's more people that are excited about what you're doing. They'll come in and be like, hey, what are you doing? Blah, blah, blah. Obviously, there's also a bunch of people that are very suspicious, and they'll be like, no, we don't like this thing, because they're sick of people like painting all over their, like, bombing or whatever. So this is what I find about like in Hong Kong, or like inside China, the international cities within China as well. So basically all the international, like bigger cities in within like the three regions, they have that kind of result, and it's quite exciting to paint in these kind of places, because like you meet like, like there's people that would like to come up to talk to you, right? They'll be like, hey, can you tell us, well, this is what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. And of course you also have to deal with people who are like, like, what are you doing here, like, we're gonna call someone, and we're gonna but it's okay. It makes it very stimulating. And then in like other places that I've painted in China, are people just think you're crazy. Like, why are you wasting paint on this wall? What are you doing? Like, unless you're doing a paid like or a project or something, then they're like, oh, okay, cool, like that. But then like sometimes if I see a wall and I think this is a cool wall, and then I'll paint it. And then there was once I was in Yunnan and then I went for like a graffiti event, and like all graffiti events, you after the event you still have some paint left over. You walk around the city and you just go like that, like you don't ask, you just do it, right? It was quite boring because no one gave it. Can I like no one gives a shit. No one really gives a shit. So they're just like, okay, all right. Like even if you just do a quick throwy somewhere, they're just like so like that. So there's none of that adrenaline rush, I guess, like people who enjoy bombing would receive, right? And then I know it's a little bit harder now because like in China they have a lot of CCTV everywhere. So I think there's like a decline in the numbers of people who enjoy doing like bombing as well. But at the time when I was painting in China, and then after that I was doing doing some stuff, and then people people didn't really care much. And then there's times when we would just paint there. I remember there's a couple of times I just have bunch of leftover paint, and then we went to like some places, and then there's some walls that look quite intact, but the environment is like kind of demolished. And we're like, well, this will be cool for a photo. So we just paint, like not just do a quick one. We're painting there, and then people just came by and go like, oh, this wall is about to be demolished. Why are you painting here? It's like, oh, just for photo. And then their reaction is like, you're crazy. Why would you do something like this for free? That's what they look think. But we're like, no, it's like we think it looks great. Like so. Macau is a very different environment compared to the other two places locations that I was saying. Yeah, because it's a very curated city. So it's mainly a gambling / tourism city, and it's very small. So they're very strict on curating what goes on a wall. There's a lot of CCTV around, and also most people are strangely really conservative. And then so so the walls that we paint in Macau are either privately owned or through like some kind of government initiatives, and we haven't done anything out of like we just go, oh, let's go find a spot and just paint. It's very spontaneous like painting. Yes, there are, but it has to be very quick. Number one is because the area is quite small. Macau's like really really small, and I'm pretty sure it's less than half the size of Hong Kong or something like that. And then also because like they're quite strict on this. They want to do it, but they're very conservative, and so so they don't. It's not a very. I wouldn't say it's a very like thriving scene at the moment. So like the total population of like people doing what we're doing is like in Macau. Would you take a guess how many from? Just pick a number. Like there's around 600,000 people in Macau. What do you think? Yeah, there's about four of us, including myself. Yes, that's the total numbers. I mean, I guess it's also a bit with the generational thing. I think now the coolest thing to do is being like some kind of influencer, maybe, I don't know, like go online and do TikTok. I don't know, but but to paint as well, it's hard to get new people to come in to be interested in doing what we do. Yeah, I think it's a really cool thing. It's absolutely like it's super cool. I'm just like, why aren't you doing it? But I think also because the culture in Macau specifically, people tend to be extremely chilled, like very, they want to take it easy. They think by doing something, especially with murals, it's hard work. Well, that's number one, it's hard work. So there's a lot of like, it's dirty and it's hard work, and why are you painting in the street? You can just sit at home and paint on a canvas if you want to. And so it's all kinds of this kind of situation. And obviously like there will always be people who are interested in painting, right? And then but it's a long game, so you don't do it just for once or twice, you keep going. So to keep going, that's also another thing, so people's numbers tend to drop. So So yeah, it's crazy. So those are the three different, very different experiences. I really like using animals as a topic because I think they have really beautiful forms, especially when they are moving. So I think like, and also I think animals, I think it kind of reflects who we are as we like to, because I like to, I do enjoy pulling in contrast, not just in terms of like visual contrast, but also like in terms of stories or like elements that I put inside like a design. So being someone who is exposed to like both like the Chinese and Western culture, raised in places that are, you know, like huge melting pots, I like to bring a lot of that into my I guess my storytelling as well. So animals, I think it's really cool because I feel like they really reflect it's a good contrast between what we as humans, we think we are like civilized society, but I mean, I don't know, I just like to use animals to represent what we think we are as human beings as well. A lot of the animals that I paint, and well, me and Felipe as well, that when we paint, it's not 100% like what we will see in like if I do a rabbit. I don't think I don't enjoy, not that I don't enjoy it, but I don't usually do an actual rabbit. So I like to reimagine. So it's more of a deconstruction of a certain animal that I would want to paint, or as a story behind it, or and so yeah, I think in a nutshell, I started doing and I continue to work with animals as my main subject. I'm very drawn to their natural forms, and I want to use that as a starting point, or as a design blueprint, so to speak, and then to reimagine it into something more, and mix it with all the well, yeah. So we and then I was talking like and then we that's why we sometimes call our how to say, our general direction, or the themes that we like to explore. How do you say it? Animalia imaginaria, like imaginary animals. Yes. So yes, yeah. So almost like a animal that you see on a day-to-day basis, but they're not quite. It's kind of like a weird fantasy animal, I guess. Like yeah. We make art toys as well, so we have the opportunity to meet a lot of like not just like artists in Mexico, but also art toy designers and artists in Mexico. And we noticed that I think it is, we see that there are people that we using their own culture to put it on a, I mean, not so traditional medium, to reflect a very old story. And I think this is very amazing. And I think this is like a super cool thing, you know, like contrast, you know. I like that kind of stuff. Yeah. We're talking about Mexico. We have a solo custom art toy show in Mexico coming up soon. I think in September or March. Oh, next month. Yes. Yeah. We are. Yeah, so we're doing one with eToy Republic. So yes, so I'll share with you guys the link, and we won't be there unfortunately because it's next month. But yes, we're going to we have a solo show for our toys next month. Yeah, custom show. So we've sent out some blank like a blank figures that we have. I don't have any with me right now, but like some blank figures, and then two different artists in Mexico, in Costa Rica as well, and we'll do some of our own too, and then we'll all gather there in Mexico. We come from a graffiti or street art background, and so that's our discipline as well. That's the culture, that this is the art culture that we embrace as part of our own identity. And then one thing we love about it is not just about because we get to paint like some walls in the street, or like paint some huge wall on some buildings or something. Mainly it's because it opens up a platform for us to do like artistic whether it's cultural or artistic or like just creative exchange with other people from the similar circles, you know. So this is, and it helps us to grow. And this is something we love about like art toys too, is because like I can have like a blank figure. I can send it to you. I can send it to Julia. I can go like, now you do your thing on top of it, and it becomes like an idea, like a crossover idea. And then so we had this crazy idea some like couple years ago. So hey, let's do an international art toy exhibition in Macau. So usually for art toys, it tends to be very localized. So it's restricted to either the country that you're building it from. So most of the artists that attend are usually from that country or from that region or from that continent, right? So, but in Macau, we actually we started pulling people from really far for us. So like in Latin America, like in Europe, or and then yeah, we got Frankmysterio, and he's a really cool guy. We enjoy his work. His work is also, this is something that also goes back to what I was talking about with my own work, that wanting to, you know, like because we were amazed by his work because he uses sofubi, which is a like a technique that was used from Japan, like a vinyl, soft vinyl kind of like a production technique from Japan, and then he used his own like Mexican design on top. And this is in at least in Asia, people that collect sofubi, or the designers who design sofubi, tend to be more Japanese style, but this is a completely different style, and everyone thinks it's very interesting. They learn more about the culture of the designer. And same with like another designer, another artist we met also, like Apochli as well, and then it's crazy, like everyone has these crazy stories. They're like, for example, he does like a miso americano, like this design, and I think this using our toys, and so yeah, I mean, so yes, we really like that, you know, and I think that's what excites me also about art, is because I get to meet a bunch of like really crazy creative people from the other side of the world. Yeah, so we hope we can bring something fresh as well to Mexico. People here love to learn more about like things outside as well, because Macau tends to be more of a little bubble, you know, so so it will be super cool to do like these kind of like exchanges, and I don't know how, but I'm sure something will come.